The lipstick stain on Richard's collar told me everything I needed to know. I stood in our bedroom, his crumpled dress shirt dangling from my trembling fingers, my world crashing down around me. "Laura, have you seen my blue shirt?" Richard's voice echoed from downstairs. I swallowed hard, composing myself. "I'm ironing it now, honey." I lied, my voice unnaturally high. I shoved the shirt into the hamper and grabbed another from his closet, my mind racing. As I descended the stairs, Richard appeared at the bottom, looking impatient. "There you are. I'm running late for my meeting." I handed him the fresh shirt, studying his face. Did he look guilty? Nervous? I couldn't tell anymore. "Here you go. Have a good day at work." He pecked me on the cheek, the scent of his cologne making my stomach churn. "Thanks, babe. Don't forget Ava has soccer practice at 4. "I know," I said, forcing a smile. "I've got it covered." As soon as the front door closed behind him, I sagged against the wall, my mind whirling. How long had this been going on? Who was she? And how could I have been so blind? My phone buzzed, startling me. It was a text from Alice, my best friend. "Coffee at Rosie's in 20?" I hesitated, then typed back, "See you there." At the cafe, Alice waved me over to our usual corner table. Her smile faded as she saw my face. "Laura, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I slumped into the chair across from her. "I think Richard's cheating on me." Alice's eyes widened. "What? No way. Richard would never." "I found lipstick on his collar," I cut her off. "And it's not the first time I've suspected something. He's been working late, taking mysterious phone calls." Alice reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. Are you sure it's not just a misunderstanding?" I shook my head, tears threatening to spill. I don't know what to think anymore. I feel like I'm losing my mind. "Have you talked to him about it?" "No," I admitted. "I'm scared of what he might say. What if he leaves me? What about the girls?" Alice's face softened. "Laura, you can't live like this. You need to confront him." Just then, my phone rang. It was the school. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Nurse Jenkins. Lily's running a fever. Can you come pick her up?" I sighed, gathering my things. "I'll be right there." Alice stood up with me. "Go take care of Lily. And Laura, promise me you'll talk to Richard tonight." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As I hurried out of the cafe, my mind was a jumble of worries and fears. How could I face Richard? What would happen to our family? At the school, I found Lily curled up on a cot in the nurse's office, her cheeks flushed. "Mommy," she whimpered, reaching for me. I scooped her up, feeling her forehead. "It's okay, baby, we're going home now." As we walked to the car, my phone buzzed again. A text from Richard, "Working late tonight, don't wait up." My stomach clenched. Another late night, another lie. At home, I tucked Lily into bed and called my mother. "Mom, can you watch the girls tonight? I need to talk to Richard." "Of course, dear," she said, concern evident in her voice. "Is everything all right?" I hesitated. "I'm not sure. I'll explain later." After Mom arrived, I paced the living room, rehearsing what I'd say to Richard. The clock ticked past 8, then 9. Still no sign of him. At 10:30, headlights swept across the front window. I steeled myself as the key turned in the lock. Richard stumbled in, reeking of alcohol. "Laura, what are you still doing up?" I stood, my heart pounding. "We need to talk, Richard." He frowned, swaying slightly. "Can't it wait until morning?" "No," I said firmly. "It can't." As I opened my mouth to continue, Richard's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling. "Who is she, Richard?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His eyes met mine, a mixture of guilt and defiance. "I don't know what you're talking about." But I knew. In that moment, I knew everything had changed, and I was ready for a fight. The morning after my confrontation with Richard, I woke up with a pounding headache and a hollow feeling in my chest. He'd slept on the couch, and I heard him shuffling around downstairs, probably getting ready for work. I couldn't face him. Not yet. I reached for my phone, desperate to talk to someone who would understand. Alice answered on the second ring. "Laura? Are you okay? You never called me back last night." I took a deep breath. I confronted Richard. It didn't go well. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to come over?" "No, I have to get the girls ready for school. But can we meet for lunch? I really need to talk." "Of course. Rosie's at noon." I agreed and hung up, feeling a small measure of relief. At least I had Alice to lean on. The morning passed in a blur of school lunches and rushed goodbyes. Richard left without a word, just a guilty glance in my direction. By the time I got to Rosie's, I was a bundle of nerves. Alice was already there, a steaming mug of coffee waiting for me. "Spill," she said as soon as I sat down. I poured out everything. The lipstick, the late nights, the suspicious text messages. Alice listened, her face a mask of sympathy and shock. "I can't believe Richard would do this to you," she said, shaking her head. "You and the girls deserve so much better." "I don't know what to do, Alice. I can't just leave him. What about Ava and Lily?" Alice reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You have to think about yourself, too. You can't stay in a marriage where you're not respected." I nodded, fighting back tears. "But how do I even start? I've been with Richard for so long. I don't know who I am without him." "You're Laura Thompson," Alice said firmly. "You're a fantastic mother, a brilliant HR executive, and my best friend. You're strong enough to get through this." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Your husband is cheating on you. Meet me at the park on Oak Street at 3 p.m. if you want proof." My hands shook as I showed Alice the message. "What do I do?" She frowned. "It could be a trap, but don't you want to know for sure?" I bit my lip, torn between fear and the desperate need for answers. "Will you come with me?" Alice nodded without hesitation. "Of course, Quajos, I've got your back, always." The rest of lunch passed in a haze of anxiety. At 2:55, Alice and I arrived at the park, scanning the area for anyone suspicious. "There," Alice pointed to a bench where a woman sat, her face hidden by large sunglasses and a scarf. As we approached, the woman stood up. "Laura?" I nodded, my heart racing. She handed me an envelope. "I'm sorry," she said softly before hurrying away. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Richard, with another woman, kissing, holding hands, entering a hotel. My stomach lurched as I flipped through them. "Oh, Laura," Alice whispered, her face pale as she looked over my shoulder, but I barely heard her. My eyes were fixed on one photo in particular, the woman with Richard. I knew that dress, that hair. I looked up at Alice, my world tilting on its axis. "It's you," I whispered. Alice's eyes widened in panic. "Laura, I can explain." But I was already backing away, the photos clutched to my chest, my best friend's betrayal burning like acid in my throat. "Laura, please," Alice called after me as I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I reached my car, locking the doors and letting out a primal scream of rage and pain. How could they do this to me? My husband and my best friend? As I sat there, shaking and sobbing, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "Now you know the truth. What are you going to do about it?" I stared at the message, a cold determination settling over me. They thought they could destroy my life? Well, two could play at that game. It was time for Laura Thompson to fight back. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. The betrayal of Richard and Alice burned in my chest, but I couldn't fall apart now. I had to pick up the girls from school. As I pulled into the school parking lot, my phone rang. It was Gary, Alice's husband. My stomach clenched. "Laura? Have you heard from Alice? She's not answering her phone." I swallowed hard. Should I tell him? I saw her earlier at lunch. Is everything okay?" Gary's voice was tight with worry. "There's been a fire at our house. I can't reach her, and I'm stuck in traffic. Can you check if she's there?" My world tilted again. "A fire? Of course, Gary. I'll head there right now." I called my mother, asking her to pick up the girls. Then I sped towards Alice and Gary's neighborhood, my mind racing. As I turned onto their street, I saw the flashing lights of fire trucks and ambulances. Smoke billowed from their beautiful two-story home. I parked haphazardly and ran towards the scene. A firefighter tried to stop me, but I pushed past him. My friend might be in there. That's when I saw them. Richard and Alice, huddled together near an ambulance, looking shell-shocked. They were alive, but their clothes were singed, and Alice had an oxygen mask over her face. Relief warred with fury inside me. I stormed over to them, my hands shaking. "What the hell is going on?" Richard's eyes widened when he saw me. "Laura, I can explain." "Explain what?" I hissed. "How you and my best friend nearly got yourselves killed, how you've been lying to me for God knows how long." Alice pulled off her oxygen mask, tears streaking her soot-stained face. "Laura, please. It's not what you think." I laughed bitterly. "Really? Because I think it's exactly what I think. I saw the photos, Alice. I know everything." Richard stepped forward, reaching for me. "Photos? What photos?" I jerked away from him. "Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me." A commotion behind us made us all turn. Gary had arrived, his face a mask of panic and confusion as he took in the scene, his partially destroyed house, his wife with another man. "Alice," he called out, pushing through the crowd. "What's going on? Are you okay?" Alice's face crumpled. "Gary, I'm so sorry." I watched as Gary's expression shifted from concern to understanding, then to devastation. My heart ached for him, even as my own pain threatened to overwhelm me. A police officer approached us. "We need to ask you all some questions about the fire. It appears to have been deliberately set." The world seemed to stop. "Arson?" I looked at Richard and Alice, seeing the guilt and fear in their eyes. What had they done? As the officer led us away to separate us for questioning, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. It was the woman from the park, the one who had given me the photos. She nodded at me once, then disappeared into the throng of onlookers. In that moment, I realized this was far from over. The fire, the affair, the mysterious woman, it was all connected somehow, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The officer gestured for me to follow him. "Mrs. Thompson, if you could come with me, please." I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. As I walked away from the smoldering ruins of Alice and Gary's home, and the smoking remains of my own marriage, I knew my life would never be the same. But I was ready to fight for the truth, for my daughters, and for myself. Whatever came next, Laura Thompson would face it head-on. The officer opened the door of his cruiser. "After you, ma'am." I slid into the back seat, my mind already racing with questions. As the door closed behind me, I caught one last glimpse of Richard and Alice, huddled together in the chaos. This was just the beginning. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room made my head throb. I'd been here for hours, waiting for news about Richard and Alice's condition after the fire. The police had finished questioning me, but my mind was still reeling from everything that had happened. A nurse approached, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Thompson? Your husband is awake now. You can see him if you'd like." I nodded, steeling myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. As I walked down the sterile hallway, my anger and hurt bubbled up inside me, threatening to spill over. Richard was propped up in bed, his face pale against the white sheets. When he saw me, his eyes widened with a mixture of guilt and fear. "Laura," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't," I said, my voice low. "I don't want to hear your excuses or your lies. I want the truth, Richard, all of it." He sighed, deflating like a punctured balloon. "I never meant for any of this to happen, but it did happen," I snapped. "You and Alice, how long?" Richard looked away. 6 months. The admission hit me like a physical blow. 6 months of lies, of betrayal. I sank into the chair beside his bed, my legs suddenly weak. "Why?" I whispered. "Why her? Why throw away our entire life together?" "I don't know," he said, and I could hear the genuine confusion in his voice. "It just happened. Alice and I, we connected in a way that—" "Stop." I held up a hand. "I don't need to hear about your connection. What I need to know is what happened at the house. The police think it was arson, Richard. Did you have something to do with that?" His eyes widened in shock. "What? No, of course not. We were just talking. Then suddenly there was smoke everywhere. We barely made it out." I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception, but all I saw was fear and remorse. "Laura," he reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I'm so sorry, for everything. I know I've ruined everything, but maybe we can." "No," I said firmly, standing up. "There's no we anymore, Richard. I want a divorce." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. Richard's face crumpled, but I felt a strange sense of relief. It was out there now. There was no going back. "What about the girls?" he asked quietly. "I'll be filing for full custody," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "You can have supervised visitation, but that's it. You've proven you can't be trusted." Richard opened his mouth to argue, but a commotion in the hallway interrupted us. I turned to see Gary bursting into the room, his face a mask of fury. "You bastard!" he yelled, lunging for Richard. I stepped between them, pushing Gary back. "Gary, stop! This isn't the place." He glared at me. "Did you know? Were you covering for them?" "No," I said softly. "I just found out too. I'm so sorry, Gary." The fight seemed to drain out of him, replaced by a bone-deep weariness I recognized all too well. "What are we going to do?" he asked, his voice breaking. I took a deep breath, making a decision that would change all our lives. We're going to fight back, together. Richard, Alice, whoever started that fire, they're not going to get away with this. Gary nodded slowly, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. You're right, we deserve better than this. I turned back to Richard, who was watching us with a mixture of fear and resignation. I'll have my lawyer contact you, I said coldly. Goodbye, Richard. As Gary and I walked out of the hospital room, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was on the right path. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it head-on. The days following the hospital confrontation passed in a blur of lawyer meetings and hushed phone calls. I'd managed to keep the girls shielded from the worst of it, but I knew I couldn't protect them forever. As I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the divorce papers my lawyer had just delivered, my phone buzzed with a text from Gary. We need to talk. Meet me at Rosie's in an hour? I hesitated, then replied, I'll be there. At the cafe, Gary looked as haggard as I felt. He slid into the booth across from me, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Thanks for coming, he said. I found out something disturbing. I leaned forward, my heart racing. Gary pulled out his phone, showing me a series of text messages. These are from Alice's phone. I shouldn't have looked, but I had to know. As I scrolled through the messages, my blood ran cold. They were between Alice and Richard, discussing not just their affair, but something far more sinister. Oh my God, I whispered. They were planning to leave us, to take the kids and disappear. Gary nodded grimly. There's more. Look at the last few messages. I kept reading, my hands shaking. The final texts were about the fire, confirming what I'd feared all along. It wasn't an accident. They set the fire themselves, I said, my voice barely audible, to collect the insurance money and fund their new life. Gary's face was a mask of pain and anger. We can't let them get away with this, Laura. We have to do something. Just then, my phone rang. It was the hospital. Mrs. Thompson, it's about your husband. He's demanding to be released, but we need your consent as his emergency contact. I looked at Gary, an idea forming in my mind. Don't release him, I told the nurse. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As we rushed to the hospital, I filled Gary in on my plan. It was risky, but it might be our only chance to get the truth. At the hospital, we found Richard arguing with a nurse. When he saw us, his face paled. Laura, what are you doing here? And why is he with you? I stepped forward, my voice steady. We know everything, Richard. About the affair, the fire, your plans to take the kids. It's over. Richard's eyes darted between us, panic setting in. You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We never meant to hurt anyone. But you did, Gary growled. You betrayed us. You put lives at risk. For what? Money? Richard slumped back onto the bed, defeated. Alice said it was the only way, that we needed a fresh start, away from all the lies. I felt a surge of anger. And what about our children, Richard? Did you think about what this would do to them? He couldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Laura. I've made such a mess of everything. Just then, a commotion in the hallway caught our attention. Alice burst into the room, her face wild with panic. Richard, don't say another word, she cried. Then she saw Gary and me, and her expression crumpled. Oh, God, you know. The four of us stood there, the weight of betrayal and destruction heavy in the air. I looked at Gary, seeing my own pain and determination mirrored in his eyes. In that moment, I made a decision that would change all our lives forever. I pulled out my phone and dialed. This is Laura Thompson. I need to speak to Detective Johnson about the arson case. I have some new information. As I spoke to the police, I watched Richard and Alice's faces crumble with the realization that their carefully constructed plans were falling apart. This was it, the point of no return. Whatever happened next, I knew our lives would never be the same. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was finally coming to light, and with it, the chance for justice and a new beginning. The hospital room crackled with tension as Detective Johnson finished taking our statements. Richard and Alice sat on opposite sides of the room, their faces ashen. Gary stood beside me, a silent pillar of support. Mr. Thompson, Miss Carter, the detective said, his voice grave. Based on the evidence and your confessions, you're both under arrest for arson and insurance fraud. As the officers moved to handcuff them, Richard's eyes met mine, pleading. Laura, please, think of the girls. We can work this out. I felt a surge of anger. You should have thought of them before you decided to burn down a house and abandon your family. Alice sobbed as she was led away. Gary, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Gary's jaw clenched, but he remained silent. As Richard and Alice were escorted out, Detective Johnson turned to us. We'll need you both to come down to the station for further questioning. I nodded, my mind racing. Of course, but first I need to make arrangements for my daughters. Outside the hospital, I called my mother. Mom, I need you to keep the girls overnight. Something's happened. After explaining the situation, I hung up, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. Gary touched my arm gently. Are you okay? I shook my head, fighting back tears. I don't know how I'm going to tell the girls their father's been arrested. How do you explain something like that to children? Gary's eyes softened with understanding. We'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this, Laura. At the police station, hours passed in a blur of questions and paperwork. As we were finally preparing to leave, my lawyer arrived, looking grim. Laura, we need to talk, she said, pulling me aside. Richard's lawyer is already pushing for a plea deal. They're trying to use your children as leverage. My heart sank. What do you mean? They're threatening to drag out the divorce proceedings, fight for custody, unless you agree to a more favorable settlement for Richard. I felt the room spin. After everything he'd done, Richard was still trying to manipulate me through our children. Gary overheard and stepped closer. That's blackmail. They can't do that, can they? My lawyer sighed. Legally, no, but they can make things very difficult and drawn out. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. When I opened them, I saw Gary watching me with concern. In that moment, I made a decision. No, I said firmly. I won't let him use our daughters as pawns. We fight this all the way. My lawyer nodded, a hint of admiration in her eyes. It won't be easy, but I think it's the right call. I'll start preparing our counter-strategy immediately. As we left the station, the weight of the day's events hit me full force. I stumbled, and Gary caught my arm. Whoa, easy there, he said softly. Let's get you home. In the car, I finally broke down, sobs racking my body. Gary pulled over and simply held me, letting me cry. When I finally calmed down, I looked up at him. How did we get here, Gary? How did our lives fall apart so completely? He shook his head, his own eyes glistening. I don't know, but we're going to get through this. Together. As we pulled up to my house, I saw my mother's car in the driveway. The girls were home. Reality crashed back in. I had to tell them about their father. Gary squeezed my hand. Do you want me to come in with you? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. No, I need to do this alone. But can you come by tomorrow? I think I'm going to need all the support I can get. He nodded, his eyes full of understanding. I'll be here. Whatever you need, Laura. As I walked to my front door, I felt like I was heading into battle. The hardest conversation of my life awaited me on the other side. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. Whatever came next, I knew I had the strength to face it. I opened the door, ready to face my new reality head-on. The courtroom buzzed with tension as I sat beside my lawyer, my hands clenched tightly in my lap. Across the aisle, Richard glared at me, his eyes cold and unforgiving. The judge cleared his throat, silencing the room. In the matter of Thompson versus Thompson, we're here to discuss the terms of alimony and child support, the judge announced. My lawyer stood, her voice steady. Your Honor, given Mr. Thompson's recent legal troubles and the circumstances surrounding the dissolution of the marriage, we believe full custody should be awarded to my client with supervised visitation for Mr. Thompson. Richard's lawyer jumped to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. My client's legal issues are separate from his ability to parent. We're seeking joint custody. The judge raised an eyebrow. Counselor, your client is facing arson charges. How do you propose he co-parent from jail? As the lawyers argued, I felt a gentle touch on my arm. Gary had slipped into the seat behind me, offering silent support. I gave him a grateful smile. Suddenly, the courtroom doors burst open. Alice stumbled in, looking disheveled and frantic. Wait! I need to speak! The judge banged his gavel. Order, ma'am, you can't just barge in here. Alice ignored him, her eyes wild as she approached the bench. You don't understand. It wasn't Richard's fault. I was the one who started the fire. The room erupted in chaos. Richard's face paled, while his lawyer looked like he might faint. I sat there, stunned, as Alice continued her confession. Richard tried to stop me, but I wouldn't listen. I thought if we had the insurance money, we could start over, but it was all my idea. The judge called for order, his face stern. Miss Carter, are you aware that you're confessing to a felony in open court? Alice nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. I just couldn't let Richard take the blame anymore. Our children deserve to know the truth. As the bailiff led Alice away, the judge turned to the lawyers. In light of this new information, we'll need to recess. We'll reconvene in 1 hour. Outside the courtroom, my head was spinning. Gary stood beside me, his face a mix of shock and concern. Laura, are you okay? I shook my head, struggling to process what had just happened. I don't know. I thought I had it all figured out, but now? My lawyer approached, looking grim. Laura, we need to talk strategy. This changes everything. As she outlined our options, I found my thoughts drifting to Ava and Lily. How would this affect them? How could I protect them from all this chaos? Suddenly, I saw Richard walking towards us, his lawyer trailing behind him. My body tensed, ready for another confrontation. But when he reached us, his face was different, softer, somehow. Laura, can we talk? Alone? Against my better judgment, I nodded. We stepped aside, away from the others. Richard took a deep breath. I know I've made a mess of everything, but I want you to know, I never stopped loving our girls, or you. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. Richard, it's too late for that. He nodded, looking defeated. I know, but I want to make this right. For the girls. Whatever you decide about custody, I'll support it. No more fights, no more lawyers. Just tell me what you need. I stood there, overwhelmed by the sudden shift. Part of me wanted to lash out, to make him hurt the way I had. But another part, the part that remembered the man I'd fallen in love with, saw a glimmer of that person in his eyes. I need time, I said finally. To think, to process all of this. Can you give me that? Richard nodded, relief washing over his face. Of course, whatever you need. As he walked away, I felt a strange mix of emotions washing over me. Anger, confusion, a tiny spark of hope. I turned back to Gary and my lawyer, both watching me with concern. What now? Gary asked softly. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. Now, we fight for what matters most. My daughter's future. As we walked back into the courtroom, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. Whatever happened next, I knew I had the strength to face it. For myself and for my girls. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in months, I felt like I might just win the war. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving me standing in the driveway of my new home. Ava and Lily raced inside, their excited squeals echoing through the empty rooms. I took a deep breath, savoring the crisp autumn air and the sense of possibility that came with it. Need a hand with those boxes? I turned to see Gary walking up the path, a warm smile on his face. Over the past few months, he'd become an unexpected source of strength and friendship. I'd love some help, thanks, I said, grabbing a box. As we carried the last of our belongings inside, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Richard. Hope the move went well. The girls settled in okay? I hesitated before replying. They're excited. Thanks for asking. Our relationship had evolved into a cautious co-parenting arrangement. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than I'd ever imagined during those dark days of the divorce. Mom, can we set up our rooms now? Lily called from upstairs. Coming, sweetie, I called back, then turned to Gary. Want to stay for dinner? It's just pizza, but... He nodded, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I'd like that. As we worked on unpacking, my mother arrived, arms laden with homemade casseroles. I thought you could use some real food, she said, kissing my cheek. The house slowly came to life with laughter and chatter. As I watched Ava showing Gary how to properly arrange her stuffed animals, I felt a warmth spread through my chest. This wasn't the family I'd imagined, but it was beautiful in its own way. Later that evening, after the girls were in bed and Gary had gone home, I sat on the porch with my mother, sipping tea. You know, she said softly, I'm so proud of you, Laura. You've handled all of this with such grace. I felt tears prick at my eyes. It doesn't feel like grace most days. I still get so angry sometimes thinking about what Richard and Alice did. Mom squeezed my hand. That's normal, dear, but look at what you've built from the ashes of that betrayal. You're stronger now, and your girls are thriving. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I gasped as I read the headline. Local business owners face bankruptcy after failed insurance scam. The article detailed Richard and Alice's financial downfall, their reputations in tatters. For a moment, I felt a flicker of satisfaction, quickly followed by pity. They'd lost everything, while I'd gained a new life. What is it? Mom asked, concerned. I showed her the article, watching as her eyes widened. Oh, Laura, how do you feel about this? I took a deep breath, surprised by my own response. Honestly, I feel free, like the last tie to that old life has been cut. Mom nodded, understanding in her eyes. You've come so far, sweetheart. Your father would be so proud of you. We sat in comfortable silence watching the stars come out. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the moments of despair. But I also thought about the strength I'd found, the friendships that had deepened, and the love that had sustained me. As I looked out at the quiet street of my new neighborhood, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was full of promise. You know, I said softly, I think we're going to be okay. Mom squeezed my hand. More than okay, dear. You're going to thrive. I smiled, feeling the truth of her words in my bones. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew I had the strength to face them. And I had a family, not the one I'd expected, but one built on love, trust, and resilience. As I headed inside to check on the girls one last time, I paused in the doorway, looking back at the life I'd left behind. Then, with a small smile, I stepped forward into my new beginning, ready to embrace whatever came next. The door closed softly behind me, the sound of a chapter ending and a new one beginning. In the quiet of my new home, surrounded by the love of my daughters and the support of true friends, I felt a surge of hope for the future. It wasn't the happily ever after I'd once dreamed of, but it was real, it was mine, and it was beautiful.